much
Yeah,
for being with
thank
us.
you for having me.
Okay.
I'm happy to be here. Well, welcome. I want to say what a great networking opportunity this is for all of you to learn more about education in this group of classmates that you have wherever you end up transferring to. I would say the information about portfolios is pretty much going to be consistent across universities. A little bit about me. I'm a professor at Ferris State. I'm based here in Grand Rapids, so if you choose Ferris, you will be working with me, especially if you go with the integrated science minor. Before that, I taught 5th and 6th grade in the Battle Creek area, and I really love my position. I feel like I have a privileged job in that I get to help people who want to become teachers. And I still get to go out to the field. I have a student teacher right now and 20 pre-teachers, so I get to see what's going on in the school still today. So we're going to hopefully achieve a few things today. A couple goals is first to define the purpose of a portfolio. The second thing is to look at the difference between what we'd consider a traditional portfolio and an e-portfolio, the differences between the two. Identify, I think what most people want to know is what goes in the portfolio, how much stuff do I have to put in there, and then hopefully also show a few excerpts of student portfolios that I think they're all student teaching or getting ready to student teach, the couple that I was hoping to show today. So that's what I'm hoping to achieve. Were there anything else specific that you were hoping to get from today that I could make a note of and be sure to cover? Okay. Well, if you think of something, there's always time to pop in. I have to give credit to my 10-year-old daughter who added all the fanciness to my PowerPoint presentation today. She wanted to roll credits and have her name up there. So there's multi-purposes for a portfolio. The first purpose is for you, the student. And it's an opportunity for you to show your achievements. That includes any awards you got, including in high school, depending on how far back that goes. So any awards, community service projects that you've done, that includes child development hours that you've done in the field at schools, that type of thing. Your GPA, if you are proud of it, that's a place for you to highlight that. It's also an opportunity for you to demonstrate how you've been effective as a pre-teacher. Maybe you've done volunteer work at summer school programs, or you've taught dance, or you've been an assistant coach or a coach out there. Those are things to show that you have been effective working with kids. Like this kind of is the same idea, to illustrate experiences. If you've traveled abroad, if you traveled out west, if you've done any coursework outside of this area, that's always kind of adds to the richness of your education. Include that as well. And I'm going to be a little biased and throw Ferris in there again. We, over at Ferris, we are integrating the GRCC and the Ferris experience. So it's not that you finish at GRCC and the portfolio is only about the university work. And this should be true wherever you choose to transfer to. You've done a lot of coursework at the community college, and you need to incorporate that into your portfolio. That just makes you uniquely prepared to be a teacher, I think. And this is what you're all thinking of, is getting that teaching position. The idea behind a portfolio is to help you get a job, whether that be in early childhood or middle school or beyond. So again, back to the idea that portfolios have multiple purposes. First for you, and then also, of course, for the institution. We have accountability to the Michigan Department of Education to show growth from when you start the program until you end the program. So this is a way for us to do that in such a way that we don't have to use a whole building to store all these papers. We're going to have a portfolio that's now the e-portfolio to show how you came to us and then what you looked like when you left. Another reason we have to have portfolios at the university is for accreditation. National accreditation might be NK or TAC, and this may not really concern you, but you have to keep in mind when you're developing the portfolio that it's for your institution and it's also for yourself and helping you get a job. And we use it for assessment too. You'll submit certain things in your portfolio and we evaluate them, and then you can go back and revise to improve it. And the other thing, this is true in many universities, Ferris is all across the state of Michigan, whether you're at the Flint campus at Mott Community College, or if you're in Traverse City, or Big Rapids campus, or Grand Rapids campus. We have to have consistency across our different sites. And this allows us to have certain assignments in the portfolio regardless of where your campus is. Kind of allows us to compare students. And you'll wonder, well, who came up with this idea about portfolios? Why do we have them? You may know that elementary students have had writing portfolios for quite a while, where they put in selected pieces of work. Well, the Ensuring Excellent Educators Task Force, which was formed by the Michigan Department of Ed, pretty much mandated that we have to have an accountability system, and this is a way to do that, to share data about the performance of teacher candidates. So it's been around for a while, and it continues to be around. I just wanted to show this too. This is from the New York Times, all about building a better teacher, the studies that go on about what does it take to really become a good teacher, and these are things that you can demonstrate in your portfolio. For instance, in this article, it's a lot about classroom management. So in your portfolio, there will be a classroom management plan. This also just recently came out. Raise your hand if you've heard of No Child Left Behind. If you've heard of that. Okay. Well, we have a new administration in Washington, D.C., a new president, and we are revamping. No Child Left Behind is being revamped and probably renamed, and this is the blueprint for reforming it. And the emphasis is going to be more on preparing students, K-12 students, for college and careers, rather than the math reading assessment. So this is just a little 45-page document more about accountability that we have to make sure we're following up on. Okay, so portfolios. Back when I went to school, I had a portfolio, and it was, paper, folder, the binder type of look. And that's what I would consider to be a traditional portfolio. It's something that you take to an interview. It's mainly to get the job. So as a result, you really pretty much create it at the end of your program. You're student teaching, finishing up your hours, and you're putting together this portfolio to take out to interviews, which may or may not be looked at during the interview, I have to tell you that. So you're going to put your resume in there, letters of recommendation, things like that. But it's really, the point is just to use it to get the job. And now we have this e-portfolio. It's all housed. We use live text, where you log into a site, kind of like Blackboard, and you store everything at that site. Again, you can use it in a job interview by providing a guest access pass. So if I were interviewing you, you come in, you give me this pass, and then after the interview, I could log in and look at your portfolio that way. The other key difference is that it's maintained throughout the program. Whatever you're doing now, when you finish at GRCC, don't throw it away. You need to make sure you have it, that you have those projects from Ed 200 and PY 233 and PY 251, those key assignments to put in your portfolio wherever you go. And once you get to the university, at least at Ferris, we will have, depending on the course, certain assignments that need to go in the portfolio. And then there will be someone that will walk around and make sure that it's there. Okay, so compare and contrast the traditional and the e-portfolio. They're both used in the interview process. How are they different, though? I'm asking you, since I'm choking. Yes, Kim.
With the traditional one, you have to wait till the end to do anything, so it's sometimes harder to realize what's important and what's not.
And if we're waiting till the end, what does that cause some of us to do? Panic. That's true. What else?
Forget things.
Forget to ask someone for that letter of recommendation. Or the other thing is you might procrastinate, and then it's not put together the way you would want it to be. Excuse me. So I maintain that you need both. There is a need for both. So why do we need the traditional hard copy portfolio? The kind that you create at the end that you take into an interview. And you really will still create one at the end, too. What is that useful for? To have that hard copy folder that you would take into an interview. I'll explain why it might be helpful. Is if you're interviewing, oh, go ahead.
You came through your votes.
Right, and you have it. Exactly. So when I've interviewed for teaching positions, there might be 6 or 7 people in that room. And they have a list of questions they want to go through with you. They don't have time necessarily to look at this hard copy during the interview, but they'll be happy to take it with them. And it's something that they can look at their leisure afterwards when they're discussing you. And it's right there in front of them. So I think that it's still used. Why do we need the e-portfolio? Yep, for the university for accountability. The other thing would be is if you're looking out of state for jobs. This is something that if you're doing a phone interview, you're not going to fly necessarily to Texas to interview. They'll do an interview over the phone. You can provide them with the guest password, and they can log in and see your work that way too. So it kind of depends on who you're interviewing with, really. And do you think they're both important to have? I think they're both valid reasons. It's great to have a hard copy in case you interview with someone that's not going to sit down at the computer and log in and look at your work. If they have it right in front of them, they'll look at it at their leisure over lunch or when they're discussing you. So I think they're both valid to have, but don't reinvent the wheel. It's not like 2 separate entities. They pretty much can contain a lot of the same work that you've done. So these are the things about the traditional portfolio that will go in there. I'd like you to raise your hand when you see that you have some of these things. Do you have any of these things that you've created so far from your experiences at GRCC? Does anybody have a letter of recommendation that's been written for them? Yep. What about a teaching philosophy? Have you written that yet? Great. Don't throw it away. You'll need it. A writing sample. Have you written a paper? That's key because employers do want to know that you are an effective communicator, and we do that through writing, and that you know how to use your apostrophes and your punctuation and that type of thing. You're going to be a teacher after all. So, yes?
I've heard some mixed responses as far as when we should start getting like letters of recommendation, where, at what point in our education. Some professors have said get them from teachers all along the way. Other professors have said wait until you get into your last couple of years.
That's a really good question. I would not wait. So if you are in the child development program and you've done some volunteer hours and you've developed somewhat of a relationship with a teacher or with a coordinator there, I would ask them for that letter. And you have one then from fall of 2009. Doesn't matter if you don't student teach until 2012. You're gonna need letters of recommendation in order to get placed for student teaching. You will need 3. So that could be one of yours. And I think it's a good way to show that you've been a hard worker throughout. And the other thing is it doesn't just have to be from schools. It can be from wherever you work. If you work at UPS or you work at a department store and you've been there for a number of months or even years, definitely get a letter of recommendation from them. I say don't procrastinate whenever possible. Get those letters along the way. I think it's a good thing to do. What about samples of lessons or unit design that you've done? You've got those. Make sure you keep those and that you have them in a format that you can link them into your e-portfolio. What about pictures? How many of you take pictures or get pictures of, good, I see some hands, good. Yeah, whether it's coaching or it's summer camp or Sunday school, get some pictures of you with kids. A principal was at our student teaching end of the semester mock interviews, and he said that he looks in the portfolio to make sure you're not wearing the same clothes in every picture, meaning you didn't have the camera one day during your student teaching and you got several pictures just that day to put in your portfolio. So start doing that now. Get some pictures of you working with kids. Okay?
I have a question.
Yes.
So on the e-portfolio, you have to be more careful with pictures. Do you have to get like the student's release that it's okay to post that picture?
Do you know that, that's a good question, but every building that I'm aware of has a release form that the kids sign at the beginning of the year. I haven't had that come up that it's been a problem. I think because it's not something that you can go to Facebook and see the pictures of the students you worked with in my second grade classroom. Instead, it's password only for educational purposes. So that's a good question. So you should be seeing some overlap between these. And I say that because I sometimes will have students that say, why do we have to do this portfolio during student teaching? We already have our portfolio. Well, don't remember that slide. Don't reinvent the wheel, because you should be able to use the same things in both. They just may not look exactly the same, okay? And at Ferris, we use live text. We go to livetext.com and we log in. You have a personalized portfolio for each of you. So if you were in my class, we might all be in the same class, but you each have your own portfolio that you access, and I can see changes that you make. I can even see changes that people have made now that they're student teaching. If they had my class a year ago, I can still see when they make updates. So there's a section called Professional Qualifications, and this is where you put the mission, your goal in life, why you want to be a teacher, that type of thing. Your teaching philosophy goes there. Your resume goes in there. So there's a big section just on professional qualifications. We'll see a variety of lessons, the unit plan that you create. And again, students include lessons that they created when they were in a science class at GRCC. Those things all belong in your portfolio, not just from the university.
Question on that.
Yes?
How many lessons we put in there? Is it intended to be an example of every single thing that we have ever done? Or should it just be a smattering of
Oh,
samples?
that's a good point. Whatever you put in, I ask that you describe it. Okay, so describe, you created this lesson in Biology 101E, and the students did this, and you know, these were the results. So you write like a few sentences about everything you put in there. So really, you don't want to put it all in there. You want to put in what you're proud of. Okay, that's a good question. But you may not know until later, so don't lose anything now. Keep it all together. Okay. So we want to see a variety of your writing samples from the community college as well as from Ferris, because wherever you go, at least right now, we have this partnership. So the equivalencies, a lot of your coursework comes from the community college. So make sure that you have your papers that you write. Research papers, that type of thing. And this is what we stress. We want to see growth toward becoming a reflective teacher. That you didn't start out perfect, that we all develop along the way. We're all still getting better. Okay, so for the Fairest Portfolio, this aligns with our program outcomes. So if you're not going to Ferris, you don't have to listen to this part. Okay, these are our program outcomes, and transformative means change. We're looking for you to change from being a student to becoming a reflective teacher. And what are some things a reflective teacher does from your own knowledge? An effective reflective teacher. What does he or she do?
You look back at how your lesson went, you make changes if it didn't work well, you want to
Exactly.
see, how kids reacted, who needs more help,
Mm-hmm.
in what areas.
And that's actually an assignment you'll have in one of my classes. So I come and I see you teach, it went well, maybe it wasn't perfect. What would you do differently and what would you keep the same if you had the opportunity to teach it again? So that's transformative. You're changing from being a student to being able to focus on 28 students in your classroom. Experiential, we want you to have diverse experiences out in the schools. So we will place you for your first 2 placements, and then the student teaching, you get to kind of choose where you want to go. But we want to try to have you in an urban setting and then a rural or suburban setting. So you get diverse experiences. Assessment driven, this is so important. How many of you have taken the MEP? How many of you are young enough to have taken the MEP? What about the Michigan Merit Curriculum? How many of you have heard of that? Where we raise the expectations, the rigor for graduating high school. Well, the same thing is going on with you. You will take the Michigan test for teacher certification at the beginning of your program and at the end. So this is a way to kind of gather more data on you. Not just sitting down and taking a test for a day, but putting together a portfolio that shows us more about you. Teaching is collaborative, so in your portfolio, we're going to expect that we can see how you've collaborated with your classmates as well as with your mentor teachers out in the field. So again, each of these are Ferris outcomes, and our portfolio is set up where you'll have a section that's called transformative, experiential, assessment-driven, and collaborative. And you will put things in each of those sections. How have you collaborated with others? Whether you planned a lesson together, taught a lesson together, or if you worked with someone, say you work at Meyer and you somehow had to collaborate with a colleague there. So it doesn't just have to be in school. Holistic, and here we're talking about the teaching and learning process, that it's students involved, teachers involved, and you're constantly looking at how to make that whole student better and that experience better. All right, so this is what you really want to know about. What exactly goes in this portfolio? We have a mission, and the mission is different than the teaching philosophy. It's kind of like a career objective in a way, and you'll see a sample that I put in here too. You include your resume, your teaching philosophy. How many of you have already written your teaching philosophy? Is that an Ed 200, right? Okay, you're going to keep it and you're going to add to it, revise it in your following classes. And then we have hallmark assignments. So if you're thinking about that portfolio, that it's got a section that's called professional qualifications, and then it goes with the TEACH. These hallmark assignments are going to be spread throughout the TEACH sections. So for every class, you'll have a couple key assignments that need to go in your portfolio. So if you're taking my methods class, there will be some assignments you turn in through Blackboard, some that you put in your portfolio, like the lesson reflection, that I come and watch you teach, and then you reflect on how it went, what you would do differently. That would be a hallmark assignment that you'd put in your portfolio. So what are some key assignments that you've had to do so far in your classes? I heard the teaching philosophy, that's Ed 200. What's another one?
The observation papers.
Oh, okay. And what class is that in?
For 118 and for 215.
Okay, so that's for the child development people? Good.
Doing an observation for Ed Psych.
Okay, good. Other observations? Anything else that you can think of? Has anybody had emergent literacy yet? No? Anyone taken CD 230? I see you nodding.
Yeah, there's a whole list in the front of all of our course packs. I think it has 3 columns, so.
Of things to include?
Of assignments from each class that we're supposed to keep.
Great,
I don't
great.
know if you've seen that. If you could
I haven't seen that list. That's great.
Please see if there's anything on there that.
I'm sure it's very thorough.
Excuse me, that was the portfolio requirement?
Yeah.
Oh, that's,
I have it. Where is it?
well, that's fantastic.
Pretty much every.
Oh, I'd love a copy of it, yeah. So then I can say to my students, yeah, I know you have this. I know that you know this.
Like from each class. It goes
Oh,
from each
okay, great, great. Yeah, that would be fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, that's why I never worry about memorizing because I know it's in. I think I
Yeah,
have it
all the
somewhere.
child development people, you were all set. You know exactly what to include in there. That's right. But yeah, observations that you do out in the field, fantastic. Lesson plans that you write, those things you should all keep. And this is just continue. The other thing, has anybody written anything about classroom management? Yes, okay. And you'll revisit that again. So you will want to, that's something you want to keep. And then when you come to 413 or 308, you'll be adding to it. Yes?
If you did for some reason like forget or lose like one of those main things or whatever, are you in trouble or do you
No, you will have more main things to put in there. Yeah. Like your teaching philosophy, that's something that, you know, can definitely change from the time you start. Well, it should change from the time you start the program to the time you're at the end. So, yes, you can certainly go back. And classroom management, you'll work on that more. Field experiences, I can't stress enough. Get those letters of recommendation. Take pictures of you with kids, with you working with kids. And this is the other part that goes in the e-portfolio. And I would think that it would be true regardless of the university you go to. What does MDE stand for? What is it? Yeah, Michigan Department of Education. Here we have another little abbreviation for you. Professional Standards for Michigan Teachers. I believe there's 7 standards, and of course, for each of the 7 standards, there's about 12 things that is expected of you when you graduate. So we're looking at, just like you will as a teacher look at state standards for students, we're looking at the state standards for Michigan teachers, and those are in your portfolio as well. Again, in that T for transformative, you're going to show how you've met certain standards. You will write in there, I have met this standard for technology because I planned a lesson that incorporated internet research, or I created a web quest for students to use. So you're going to be examining the standards, and it's all in live text for you. So it's like visiting Blackboard, but instead you're going to live text and looking at the standards. Okay? The key is to see students in action. Does anybody remember Margaret Gordon? She's a graduate of our program. This is Margaret and her rhyming lesson. This was taken from her portfolio. Shows her working with the kids. And this is taken from another student. She's student teaching right now. In that portfolio, there's the professional qualification section. There's a mission. And sometimes that's confusing for people, but this is her mission she put. Which I thought was well written, clear. And I just want to take an opportunity for questions before I go to live text and look at a couple examples. I think it helps to see some. Are there any questions? Well, considering you have a list of already what needs to go in your portfolio, that's a great step in the right direction. Okay. As for the people that were just coming in, I will make this available for you, the PowerPoint, if that would be helpful. Okay, so this is our site for Ferris, where you'll go to log in. Oh my gosh. How many of you are enrolled in Ed 101 for the fall? Is anybody here taking that? Okay, so if you're taking EDUC 101 in the fall, you will purchase live text and you can start working on it. You'll do assignments in EDUC 101 that will go in there. Okay. This is a student sample of a portfolio. Here is her introduction and welcome. She put a picture in there. She was really good with all the colors and that type of thing. She has other pictures she linked down at the bottom. This is the other section I mentioned, the professional qualifications. And there's her mission, more pictures. And the resume, we have someone come into the EDUC 413 who goes over resumes and all that stuff. Notice she copied and pasted instead of attaching it. It's just easier to see just at a glance. Her teaching philosophy. And then her classroom management plan is here. She talks about parent involvement, that type of thing. The rules she'll have in her class. Okay, and then along this side, you'll see these are our program goals, okay, our program outcomes. And I'll just show you one of them. I don't think I mentioned that, but samples of student work, yes. Scan that in as well. And she explains it. Whatever you put in there, you explain. This is an interest inventory that she did to get to know the students before she started developing lessons. She needed to get to know them, build relationships with her students first. And she's got more pictures and that type of thing. And here's more evidence of it. Lesson that she planned. And whatever you create in live text, you can just then, it'll link you directly to the lesson. So it's kind of handy. It's all there in one spot. But of course, anything that you create at GRCC, you would just link as an attachment. So it wouldn't be a direct live text link. Any questions now that you've seen an example of a portfolio? Does it seem more clear, or are you stressed out now thinking about everything you have to put in there? Yes.
Is electronic portfolios like, do they want electronic portfolios more or regular like paper?
You know what? I maintain that we need both. We need to have both. So you can take your hard copy traditional portfolio to an interview, and they can look right there, and you can, if you have time in the interview, go over some things in that portfolio. You can leave it with them. But then you also need to have the e-portfolio because it's for the university's accountability to the Michigan Department of Education. Also, if you're looking to get a job, not necessarily out of state, but even across the state, you can give a guest pass to a principal, and he or she can look at that from their computer.
Okay.
So I do feel that you need both. And you're not reinventing the wheel, because whatever you have in here, you simply print and put in your, it's not doing it more than once. It really isn't. Yeah. And you work on it in class too. At least in my class, we work on it. So, other questions? That was a good one.
Will you be able to show us more portfolios so we can see? I'm wondering, it seems like they might all be very similar. I wanted to, because I
You
like
want to look at
teaching,
another one?
You know, how
Oh.
are they different from person to person? We're all going to have pictures of ourselves with groups of kids and
Yep. Well, I guess along here, how you think you've embodied, becoming an assessment-driven teacher will look different from her. Yeah, I can see if I can go back and show you. Hopefully I don't get booted out of it. Okay, here's her little introduction. This is Tina Moorhead. So her, it's a little hard to read. Can you read that from there? But her mission is written differently. Yeah, then she's got the resume. Her philosophy of education is a little bit longer. They're not exactly the same. Classroom management plan. She even has an assessment of her classroom management plan, which is good. How will I know it's working? Here's the T for this particular person. Okay. So this first section is where you write a narrative about your transformation. This section right here is our program outcome. I encourage students, just leave that the way it is. That's what we believe about teacher education. Okay, and this gives an example. She's listed, remember those standards I mentioned? The professional standards for Michigan teachers. She has her standards there and then writes about how she's met them and then shows attachments. Again, she wrote the narrative. The second is just our program outcome. These are direct links to things that she created in live text, and then these are some things that she did just as Word documents, perhaps at the community college. Here's another one. And here she bulleted all the different things she's done that have shown her experiences in schools. So does that help? You've seen a few. Any questions that have popped up from seeing those examples? Again, you'll get information on it in your first education class. You'll buy live text. You'll be able to log in. You'll do some assignments that way. I know when you're in 413 in the level 2 classes, that's when you will definitely be building a lot of the portfolio. And that's a level 2 course. So 413 is that first, it's offered in the fall, and it's your first field experience. So you'll be getting pictures, maybe a letter of recommendation. You'll be writing a variety of lesson plans. So your portfolio by the end of 413 will look pretty good. And then you'll just revisit it in each of your courses, adding their hallmark assignments to your portfolio. And then, again, you'll use it all the way through 499 when you're student teaching. When you go to seminar during your student teaching, you'll meet up here a couple times every month. They'll want you to bring your teaching philosophy, your classroom management plan, and really all you'll need to do is go to your portfolio, look at what you have, see if you need to tweak it based on your experiences, and then you'll have it for the hard copy portfolio as well. Okay? So it's really something doable, and it's something that you'll work on throughout your experience.
Is there, and maybe I missed this, but is there a place in there for extracurricular activities?
Oh, that's a good point. Where we, you know what, in any of these sections, like under experiential or collaborative, you could include that, those extracurriculars here in your narrative, writing about it. When I was coaching such and such team, you can add that in the narrative, but most definitely needs to go on your resume for sure. And I think somebody had asked, like, how far back do you go? Well, it kind of depends on your age. Mine right now, I have everything on it. I don't maybe have my student teaching on it. But I would encourage you, if you're proud of your GPA from high school, put it on there. Make sure that if you were the class president of your graduating class from high school, I would put it on there, unless it was maybe as long ago as mine. But if it's in the last 10 years, I would put it on there. So it can go in your resume, but you can also address it in your narrative. And definitely might be something worth mentioning in an interview, depending on how far back it was. So if you have opportunities to do any volunteer service, oh, that was one thing I wanted to mention. Any volunteer hours out in the community, whether it's for crop walk or Susan B. Komen walking or running, or any coaching assistance or Sunday school, you should definitely do that, because that's one area of the resume that seems to be kind of hard to build, is that the extracurricular. So take those opportunities. If it's just a Saturday to help with a walk, do it. Definitely. Or if you finish at GRCC in May and you have time to go to your local school where you went to school and see if there's a teacher that would use your help in the classroom, go and do that. You can put that on in your portfolio, if not on your resume. Because the focus is more on what you've done than on the number of hours. It's more important to know that you worked with a second grade class at Godfrey Lee Elementary during the fall semester than it is to know that you spent 37 hours in that class. Because we want it to be a rich experience and not so focused on there you did your hours and you're done type of thing. So. Okay, does that help? Hope. All right, well, it was nice coming to see you, and I look forward to seeing some of you in the fall. Thank you.